welcome. Of course, I'm here with Chief Sam Dotson, the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and a number of other representatives of the police department as well. Missy Kelly from the Downtown St. Louis Partnership, our Downtown STL Incorporated, and Bruce Franks, who both of whom are on our Crime Commission, which I'm going to talk about as well this morning. So, good morning and welcome. 188 people lost their lives to senseless and destructive violence in the city of St. Louis in the past year. Overall crime was up 2% over the previous year. None of these deaths were warranted. Neither of the numbers is acceptable. My heart goes out to the families, friends, neighbors of the senseless, grieving for the senseless and untimely death of their loved ones. We cannot let them pass in vain. It cannot be seen as normal to hear gunshots or to know someone who has suffered from a gunshot wound or worse in one of our neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis. In a moment, Chief Dotson will give you the details and walk you through those, but first I want to talk about our future. First and foremost, crime reduction is my number one priority in the city of St. Louis. Until every neighborhood is safe and until everyone can live in their neighborhoods feeling safe and every person can work and play in our city without fear of criminals lurking to harm them, we have a lot more work to do. I'm very proud of the work our officers do. We've got an outstanding police department. We've got great leadership in Sam Dotson, and we should be very, very proud of them. They do great work morning, noon, and night, day in and day out. At points last year, crime was up 15 to 17%. So it's a testament to their hard work that we ended up where we did, which was 2% up over the previous year. While I'm nowhere satisfied with what we've been able to accomplish, I'm encouraged by the downward trend that we've been seeing over the past several months. We still have a lot of work to do, of course. Crime of any kind threatens the fabric of our community. We are a nation awash with guns. There are too many guns, too many people, too quick to use them, and they're too easily to get a hold of. And a justice system that doesn't provide the level of justice many victims and our city deserves. So I'll continue to push for an armed offender docket, and I'll continue to ask the Board of Aldermen to pass a funding measure to pay for more police. And I'll continue to work with anyone who is committed to reducing crime and increasing community awareness and cohesiveness in our city. That includes a new crime commission. By executive order, I have established a crime commission and have asked 14 individuals to work together and to work with us to provide an additional level of oversight and expertise as we implement our comprehensive plan to make every neighborhood safer in our city. We call that plan the PEER plan, which stands for Prevention, Intervention, Enforcement, and Reentry. To be most effective, the PEER plan identifies and implements strategies to prevent crime, intervene in people's lives when they start down the wrong path, enforce the laws, and help offenders successfully re-enter our community once they've paid their debt to society. So we've asked our 14 crime commissioners, including Bruce Franks and Missy Kelly, who are with me here today, for a 2-year commitment to serve as citizen expertise to help us implement the PEER plan. The PEER plan will best succeed when the entire community supports it and works together. The commissioners will monitor the implementation of the programs and policies, identify non-traditional partners to engage, and provide feedback and input on updates and strategies. Commissioners will also seek input from the alderman, from the circuit attorney's office, state court judges, federal law enforcement, local law enforcement officials, and the state attorney general's office as well. Again, it's going to take everybody working together to help make this work. The commissioners represent our community. They are, and I'm going to read them out individually, Dr. Kelvin Adams from the St. Louis Public Schools, Mac Bradley, Standpoint Public Affairs, James Clark from Better Family Life, Bridget Flood, Incarnate Word Foundation, Bruce Franks, 28th to Life, he's with us here this morning, Erica Henderson, Promise Zone Director, Beth Hubner, University of Missouri St. Louis Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice, Ginger Imster from Arch Grants, Rod Jones, Grace Hill, Missy Kelly, Downtown St. Louis STL Inc., Whitfield Montgomery, St. Louis Public Schools, Carrie Pettis Davis, Washington University School of Social Work, Nadeem Ramich, Bosrich and Ramich Law Office, Joe Walsh, St. Louis Cardinals, and Joe Yancey, Places for People. We need every St. Louisan dedicated to doing everything we can to help reduce crime, because what happens in one neighborhood absolutely affects every single neighborhood in our city. Many strategies can be found within our peer plan and within our public safety portal. Several are already underway and include meeting people where they are, like taking job training and skills into our jails through Prison to Prosperity to better prepare offenders returning to our neighborhoods. Bruce is really helping us tremendously in that regard, and I spent an evening up there with some of our students. Some of those are they're inmates in our medium security prison, and they are voluntarily working together with us to help get some good job skills, so when they come out, there's a job. They will have an opportunity to get a job, and it's really a heck of an experience. I want to thank Bruce for his leadership and all his involvement in that regard. Opening a satellite Slate office or Slate offices to better connect people in challenged neighborhoods with jobs and opportunities, giving young people the chance to satisfy their obligations to the law while they are also starting a real career through our Civil Liberties program, teaching young people how to build homes to reinvest in their own neighborhoods through Youth Build, and building union diversity by getting more women and minorities into construction trades. These are just some of the things that we're doing that are put together to help create opportunities for more people to live a productive life, to help better support themselves and their families. We will continue to bolster our peer plan with new ideas and replicate and fine-tune what works. Replicate what works and fine-tune what doesn't. A few of our efforts you will see over the coming year include 15 of our most challenged neighborhoods will receive more concentrated city services, employment opportunities, and quality programming for youth. Civilian Oversight Board members are in the middle of their training and are going to soon begin their work. We've launched a body camera pilot program for our police department. Together with regional and federal partners, we are using focused deterrence to go after the worst offenders, those relatively few people responsible for the majority of violence in our community. The Mental Health Board received a sizable federal grant to expand services to children and families. And we also received a $1 million burn grant, Criminal Justice Innovation Grant, on the near north side for employment services for re-entering residents, crime prevention through environmental design, and restorative justice. Additionally, we also have won a $500,000 Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant to create a blueprint for large-scale redevelopment, social infrastructure, and economic opportunities in Carr Square and Columbus Square on the near north side in the city. I'm looking forward to the year ahead in the city of St. Louis, and encouraged by the numbers of people that are willing to help. Again, it's going to take all of us working together. I see a lot of synergy. I see a lot more collaboration and coordination that we've seen in a while. And certainly want to thank the men and women of the St. Louis Police Department for all the great work you do. Chief, thank you for your leadership there as well. And want to thank the crime commissioners as well for stepping up. You play a very, very important role in supporting the efforts of the city, and also bringing to bear and bringing to the table real experiences that you all have and assistance as we not only come up with ideas on how we reduce crime and improve opportunities, but also how we give people a hand up in our community where it's needed. And most of all, I want to thank our community generally, whether it's the civic, the business, the residential community of St. Louis for sticking together. There's so many great stories day in and day out that you hear about people who are doing good things for their neighborhood and are working with police, working with city government to help improve neighborhoods and improve quality of life for our citizens. With that, I will turn it over to Sam Dotson, who will give us some more detail.
Thank you. Before I start, I do want to thank the mayor for his leadership. One of the things that you hear us talking about in law enforcement most frequently is that we cannot do this alone. we cannot arrest our way out of some of the challenges that our community has. The peer plan and now the crime commission give us opportunities to engage the community in ways that we haven't before, hopefully to address some of the systemic issues that affect all of us and are most often manifested through crime problems. So thank you for the peer plan, thank you for the crime commission. We're looking forward to getting those started very quickly and working with law enforcement. For those of you that have attended meetings before, some of these slides are going to look very familiar. One of the things I want to do is walk you through what's happened in the city of St. Louis over the past year in regards to crime. Typically, we start at a very high level, talk about crimes that have impacted the entire city. Then we talk about specific crimes and the way that we've been able to address those or to work on those. So the first slide that we always start with is overall crime in the city of St. Louis. As the mayor said, crime in the city of St. Louis, total crime, and that's the 8 biggest crimes that we affect, increased 2.2%, or just over 550 occurrences. So overall crime in the city increased by 550 crimes last year compared to the previous year. In some of the slides that we're going to see in a minute, we're going to talk about how that fits into a historical perspective and a historical context. Because I've always said that crime doesn't go down in a straight line, it doesn't go up in a straight line, it fluctuates from year to year. The red bar represents that 2.2% increase. The gold bar in the center is property crime. Things like larcenies from vehicles, stolen autos, burglaries. We've seen an increase of 0.7%, or 136 additional crimes compared to the previous year. And the blue box is one of the areas that we're most challenged in, and that's person crime. Those are the crimes: homicide, aggravated assault, robbery, the crimes that have the most chilling effect on the community. There we go. So as we break down and look at the individual crimes, you can see homicide is represented by the blue bar. Homicides are up 29 occurrences compared to the previous year. As we move across, I think it's important while we talk about homicides. You heard the president speak last week about the availability of guns and what the damage that guns can do to a community. And by executive order, he's putting in place things that I think can ultimately help impact the level of violence that's occurring in the city of St. Louis. Of those 188 murders that occurred in the city of St. Louis, 179 involved a firearm. 179 out of 188 murders. We've seen a significant increase in stolen guns in the city of St. Louis. There was a 24% increase in stolen guns last year. That means 657 guns were mostly stolen out of vehicles or taken in burglaries and put into the hands of criminals. Here's a shocking number. Seized guns. The city of St. Louis, the Metropolitan Police Department, seized over 1,500 guns from criminals last year. That's a 35% increase. If you think about it, spread out over a year, that's more than 4 guns per day that we seized from criminals that were on the street. Those guns undoubtedly led to the increase that we saw in murders, undoubtedly led to the increase that we'll talk about in a second in aggravated assaults. I am a huge supporter of the president's actions. I think we have to be serious as a state. We've seen Amendment 5, which have eroded away law enforcement's ability to enforce laws. We've seen the president take action to close the loophole for gun shows, and I think later this week we're going to have some significant stories to tell about how those loopholes have impacted crime in the city of St. Louis. Moving across, I'll hit some of the increases. Robbery, 228 more robberies in the city of St. Louis in 2015 compared to 2014. Aggravated assaults, I talked about, a 5.2% increase. Again, I believe the availability of guns had a significant impact on that number. And then as we move into some of the other crimes, a small decrease in burglary, larcenies, 215 up, stolen vehicles, down 101. I think some of these categories, the only year that crime was lower in the city of St. Louis compared to last year, you have to go back to 1960s. So we talk about context. Crime in the city of St. Louis continues an overall downward trend, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. It always helps when technology goes with you. This is a great slide that I always like to talk about. This talks about the historical context of crime in the city of St. Louis. If you look at this slide, you will see the downward trend that's occurred in the city of St. Louis in the past 10 years. Crime in the city of St. Louis since 2006, looking back, person crime, total crime, the red bar, is down 47.7%, nearly 50%. The gold boxes represent property crime and a decrease of almost 51% over the past 10 years. And the blue boxes, the blue lines, that are the smallest category, represent a third reduction in the past 10 years. So crime continues in a significantly downward pattern. Moving right along. I always think it's important to have context. So when we talk about murders in the city of St. Louis, last year 188 occurred. But when we look at the pressure that we were able to exert to try and reduce homicides, most of the year we spent above, the blue line represents a 5-year average. If you'll see, as we move towards the end of the year, we were able to put pressure, and there were fewer homicides in December than we've seen in a 5-year average. This will hold true for all the crime categories. This is available to you online, so you'll have copies of this online. Robberies, again, below the 5-year average in the city of St. Louis. Aggravated assaults, below the 5-year average in the city of St. Louis. Burglaries represent a significant decrease, 121 fewer burglaries than the 5-year average in the city of St. Louis. Larcenies, over 200 fewer larcenies in the city of St. Louis. Vehicle thefts, as I talked about. Vehicle thefts at lows that we haven't seen since the 1960s. Just to give you an idea of the pressure that we've been able to exert. This looks at the same month to the previous year for last year. The amount of crime is up or down. As you can see, through July, crime represented a significant increase. Each month we saw upward trends, upward pressure, more crimes occurring. But if you look at the last quarter, or really since September of 15, we saw a trend that I'm very encouraged by and the mayor talked about, where crime is moving in a positive direction. We're starting to see month after month reductions compared to the previous year. So crime in December was lower than it was in December of 14. Crime in November of 15 was lower than it was in November of 14. And so we are hoping that trend continues through our programs like hotspot policing, which we're continued to do, focus on the neighborhoods and the areas, which fits right into the mayor's peer plan, which talks about putting pressure into those 15 neighborhoods, not just with law enforcement, but with city services, with the street department to make sure street lights are working, with the building division to board up vacant buildings. That we've seen has a residual effect and a lasting effect. We're going to expand it with new programs with the Justice Department that we'll talk about later this spring, where we target individuals that we know are responsible for the crimes. And then, as you know, the mayor talked about it, and I can't emphasize it enough, the city of St. Louis needs an armed offender docket. We need a mechanism to hold people accountable when we arrest them for a gun. You've heard stories from me, you've heard stories from the mayor, all too often that individuals that we arrest receive probation from judges and go right back out on the street and commit crimes. We have to be better than that. If that continues, it becomes harder for law enforcement to do their jobs. So these slides are available to you online. The mayor and I, along with Bruce Franks and Missy Kelly, are available to answer questions and happy to talk to you.
Just probably for everyone up there, what is it that you think about this commission will make that person who's on their way to commit a crime say, I'm not going to do it?
Well, I don't think the commission's function is, that's not the function of the commission. The function of the commission is to provide expertise as well as a variety and diversity of citizens within our community who have a stake working with law enforcement, working with government to make sure, first of all, that we're doing everything we can to implement the peer plan and to come up with ideas on what we can do better. If they see something that needs to be done, they've got a voice at the table. They live in communities themselves, so they can bring the ideas and the experiences from within the communities, whether it's the business community, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's North St. Louis Central Corridor, or whether it's in the philanthropic community. There's a lot of things that they bring to the table, and they can also come and suggest resources and ideas on what we can do better and more of in order to provide better opportunities on other levels rather than the enforcement of the peer plan.
Mr. Mayor. How often will they meet, and will they give you a report after 6 months or 1 year?
They will be meeting on a quarterly basis. We have Carl Filler from my office who will be working with them. Certainly they're going to be providing at least an annual report to me and to the community. So we're and we're they haven't met yet, have they? Not that I'm aware of. So they haven't met. I just appointed them, and they're once they meet and we can talk about how best to approach it. Certainly, we want to get their input on that as well.
Mayor, let me ask you a cynical question. What would you say? People might think the real purpose of the commission is to change the subject or to make it look like you did something, because all last year you put your political capital into minimum wage and stadium funding plan, both of which are very shaky. There was no big effort or push to get a funding plan for more cops through the Board of Aldermen. You're just trying to look like you're doing mop-up, you're doing something after a bad year, but really, where are the cops? Where's the money for more cops?
Yeah, first of all, I have said a long time ago, and I've been an advocate for more funding for cops as well. We have submitted proposals to the Board of Aldermen, and we're asking them to move those forward. So I can tell you that's something that we were disappointed in, and that we were not able to get the funding measure through the board to go to the voters, and we need to sell it to the voters. So that's something that's going to be important.
But I mean,
if we're going to put more cops, if we're going to put more,
all like 6 months ago when the Supreme Court threw out the red light camera portion of it, we haven't heard boo from you of more money for cops. It's been all stadium all the time.
no, that's not true. I have talked a lot about this, and when I'm in a lot of places, I talk about it a lot.
Where's the board bill?
They're introduced. There have been three bills that have been introduced. One of them is the one that was on the red light camera. That's one, of course, we're not going to be able to move forward because, of course, it's in the air now, up in the air with respect to the legality of it. But be assured, let me tell you, when the press focuses a lot of attention on stadium and minimum wage, something that those are two things that we really push forward. But believe me, we spend a lot more time on all the other things we're talking about in the PURE plan. Whether it's providing better and more opportunities for people in prison to be able to have, and Bruce can talk about some of that as well, but the reentry programs that we have, the programs we have to improve education opportunities for our children, the things we're doing to improve job training. We're doing a lot of things there. These things are not things you hear a lot on the news because, frankly, I wish you would talk more about those things that we're doing in the city of St. Louis, but these aren't the things that get people's attention, and these aren't the things, I guess, that draw your attention. But the fact is, I spend personally more time on the issues that are before my Children, Youth, and Families Commission, which I've had in place for about 8 years, after-school programs for children, our summer jobs program, 1,500 children, kids were well, no, let me finish this, because you said all we talk about is stadium funding and something else. But the point is, we are talking all the time with people who have impact on all these other issues that are far more important. Far more important. And when I started out my comments saying this morning, and I said it for good reason, that our number one priority is reduction in crime. It is today, and it has been since the day I took office. And by the way, if you look at the numbers, first of all, they're unacceptable. I want to make that clear. Crime is too high in the city of St. Louis. But there's 1 year in the last 50 years where crime was lower than it is today.
All right, last question.
Wait. In the last 50 years, there's 1 year where crime was lower than it was last year, and that was the year before. So crime has been dropping in the city of St. Louis pretty steadily. Where we're really seeing, but it's still too high, but what we're really seeing a problem is in aggravated assaults, in murders. Of course, they've gone up, and we've seen a big spike there, and we've talked about where that is. But we do talk a lot about crime. I've been questioned by you on crime a lot of times, and I'm always answering those questions.
Let me just redirect, and then I'll shut up. While you've done a lot of talk about the rhetoric of crime, the philosophy of crime, you're not delivering today a plan to fund more cops. We saw in the stadium debate the very next day a 200-page alternate plan for funding would occur for that. People would drink coffee and stay up all night. Where's the funding plan? Is it going to come out soon to hire more cops?
The funding plan is we already have funding ideas. We've submitted some of them to the Board of Aldermen. They've been held up, not because of anything we didn't do. I just want to, not because of anything we didn't do. But I will tell you that one of which would be a fee increase on parking. a fee increase on automobiles, and we had another one for business license fee increase as well. So those are three things that we're proposing. And we proposed them a long time ago, and we haven't given up our efforts to get those things passed to the Board of Aldermen. We are committed to, and if that doesn't work, we're committed to finding new ways. The reality is, we need more resources. We're going to hire more cops. We're going to need more resources. It costs, what about $50,000? More than $50,000 per police officer. And we're also, Chief and I are working together with the personnel department to try to make sure we continue our efforts to get more cops, get those more classes in. So, we're now about how many cops short from our authorized strength?
80 with 37 in work at.
80 short now, and we're trying to get 37 more in academy. So we have to keep up with the attrition that we're seeing among the forces. And the other thing I've talked about too, and this is something that I'd like to identify some funding for, is making sure that not only are we putting more cops on the street, that we make sure we give them competitive salaries with police departments around the region. And so those are tall orders. Those are not easy to do, but I'm committed to continue our efforts to make that happen. But we certainly have not dropped the ball. If that's what you're suggesting on those things.
Mr. Mayor, I hear you when you say that you want this commission to help you come up with ways to reduce the crime. So how will you measure that, sir? What will be the bar that you use to measure that? And as you know, there are other crime commissions around the country. Chicago has one of the biggest and the longest, and they have a certain dynamic on who they've appointed and what that will bring in terms of measurement. So how will you use that as part of this?
The Crime Commission is put in place not as a window dressing thing. We've been doing, and this is why we did this. First of all, we have been doing all these, the vast majority of things that are in this crime plan. We've been doing these things for quite some time. We've gotten results. The results are not good enough, but we've got some results. But there was a lot of questions about what we're doing to reduce crime, and that the government's working kind of in a vacuum, that we need more community involvement. We need the Board of Aldermen more involved in these things. So we embraced that idea. I thought it was a good idea. So we decided we're working closer with the Board of Aldermen on these things. We've decided to put together a crime commission so that people, it's not just a feel-good thing, but it is showing the community that we are getting input. I mean, on a daily basis, we talk to business leaders. We talk to community leaders. I go to neighborhood organizations all over the city of St. Louis talking about crime and learning what people think are important. But if you want to make sure that people really believe that we're doing these things, you need to have them at the table. You need to have a broad base of community leaders and residents at the table so that there's real-time information that they get and real-time feedback on the things that they see and what they're hearing in their community. So I think it's a positive thing. It was a good idea, and I know other cities do it. But to the one statement, we'll do everything we can to make sure we reduce crime. We're hoping this is going to impact that. I think it will. But the thing is, we just need to make sure that, and if somebody else has another idea, we'll look at that one too, and we'll see if that's going to work. There is one thing about crime, addressing crime, and sometimes we get caught up in this. There's no one magic wand where this city's doing this, and this is why their crime's going down, or this city's not doing this because their crime's going up. The chief knows that, and I know that. We've met with police chiefs and mayors from around the country and prosecutors, federal and state, on these issues, and there's no one thing that anybody can say, well, boy, this is why crime's going up in their city, or this is why crime's not going up. I can tell you on the homicides, it's going up in cities all across America. I mean, we had an 18% increase in homicides this year. And I know people were touting Kansas City and all the things they're doing over there. Their homicides were up by 35% this year. Okay? St. Louis County's homicides went up by 78% this year over the previous year. Now, the numbers are lower, I get that. But the point is, this is not something that's just happening in St. Louis. So if we need to take a broader approach, if it's just going to be about, oh, gee, look what's happening here in St. Louis, that's what I care about the most. But make no mistake about it, the things that are going on in our community are happening in cities all across America, and mayors and police chiefs and prosecutors are we're collaborating, we're working together, we're talking, the chief and I, and nobody has a magic wand to address this stuff. But if somebody comes up with an idea that sounds halfway decent, we're going to do it. And if putting together a crime commission is something we don't have, and somebody thinks it's a good idea, we're going to do it, and we've done it. But we're going to make sure we make the best of that, the best use of that crime commission as well.
I'd love to hear from some of the folks on the commission just kind of about what is it that you think you specifically bring to the table that will impact some of these numbers, specifically the murders and the crime, the robberies that we're talking about, the violence.
Well, I can say that as the CEO of Downtown STL, I work with the police on a daily basis, just a touch base to figure out if there's anything that our community can do to make sure that communication is part of helping everyone to understand where we are. We've worked very closely with Chief Dotson and his staff to help contribute to solutions through technology. So we've raised money to purchase cameras, which helps with, I believe, with several of the 4 letters in the peer plan. And, you know, I am excited by this. First of all, I'm honored to be part of it. And secondly, as a downtown resident and someone who represents many of the businesses in downtown, I'm thrilled to have even more people focused on the same thing that I can connect with to see what we can do together, because I really do see momentum and positive change taking place, and it is more often and takes place when people are collaborating and working together. So I'm just thrilled to be able to work with Bruce and the other commissioners to see what we can do and help bring other people on board. People are motivated and they want to help. They just don't know how. So I think things like a crime commission can help us pull together ways to do that.
To piggyback off of what the mayor said, if this was a window dressing or something to appease people, me personally, I wouldn't be a part of it. I would have declined. But I believe in the peer plan. I work closely with a lot of the programs that are in the peer plan to reduce crime, because we can talk about getting more officers all day, and you know there are aspects that I definitely agree. But at the end of the day, I believe in a peer plan because it attacks gun violence and crime from the root cause, be it lack of resources, lack of jobs, and lack of opportunity. So that's exactly what the peer plan offers, and a lot of the programs within the peer plan that the mayor has championed, the city has championed, along with Slate. So I definitely believe in a peer plan, and I know what I can offer to the peer plan is real life experience. Real life experience, being from the south side of St. Louis, being from the city of St. Louis, being a victim of gun violence and a victim of a lot of the things that we see. I offer that firsthand account to a lot of our youth and young adults that we'll be interacting with, because it is about reaching them. Exactly what the mayor said. We got to meet them where they at. And the way we've been doing things, it has been crime has been dropping, but those numbers, like you said, are unacceptable. So we got to go above and beyond and take an extra step forward to do exactly what we got to do. So I absolutely believe in the peer plan, and I'm all in.
How will the crime commission help, Bruce? And what do you think you can bring to it to help?
I think the crime commission will help because it's a diverse unit of individuals from the community that do a bunch of different things. That we have the Downtown Association, we have 28 to Life, we have Better Family Life, we have officers, we have all of these people in these different aspects that can now come together at the table to talk about the different things that we do and how we can come to a common ground on actually fixing a lot of the crime problems and helping assist the mayor and the police in fixing the crime reduction. Because like Chief Dotson said, we can't lock our way up out of this. You know, we can't just lock up everybody that this is affecting. You know, it comes to the point where we have to provide those resources, and re-entry is one of the biggest pieces in that. And like you said, with the Prison of Prosperity program, it's something innovative. It's something innovative that we actually go inside the prisons and teach job readiness training, teach behavior modification, talk about real life issues, bring in special speakers like the mayor, like Chief Dotson, like politicians, where they get a real hand account of what these young men are going through and the types of lives they live. And when they get out, we don't sell them a dream. We help them. We get them jobs. We get them in school. We get them whatever it is they need. So this crime commission is going to work. It's going to work, and the peer plan is going to work.
One of the statistics I wanted to get today, if you might have, is how many people in the city of St. Louis were shot by a gun last year?
And I can get that for you. It's a number that I just don't have off the top of my head. I can get that for you.
Because an alderman said that's a number to watch for, that it can be more of an indicator than homicide. Do you have a sense as to whether that's up or down?
So what I expect is I've seen the aggravated assault category go up, that number is going to be going up as well. And really, I said it in my remarks at the candlelight vigil that Janelle Culpepper holds every New Year's Eve to remember the victims of the homicides from the previous year, that an aggravated assault with a gun, in a lot of cases, is an unsuccessful murder attempt. And so we have to get at the root cause. And whether we're talking about homicides or aggravated assaults, too many guns are on the street. When we arrest people with guns, we don't get outcomes from the court. And I still am perplexed why we're here over a year, standing here talking about an armed offender docket, and we haven't gotten one. And to follow up on what Bruce says, a lot of young people in some of our communities feel like that they don't see a path out, that they don't have access to education, to jobs, to substance abuse programs, to conflict resolution, to a variety of things. That's something that we're going to work on with the Crime Commission, with UMSL, with the Department of Justice, to try and help identify some of those people to give them a path. Because guns are too prevalent, young people are too willing to use them to solve disputes. It used to be, and I'll kind of, if you'll indulge me just for a second, when you and I were young, it was important to have a nice car. You polished your car, you drove it around on a Friday or a Saturday night to show that you were a cool person. Now, if you look on social media, you see 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds with weapons, with guns, with extended magazines, assault rifle, high-powered weapons, and they spend social media time taunting each other back and forth. So ultimately, they come to a crescendo where they have to go out and prove who is the bigger person in that conversation. They use the guns. We really have to address that at root cause, and that's the parents. We have to get involved. So
that's my last question. Then is that's one motive, but could you sort of characterize what are the different motives behind all these shootings and killings?
So I would start that typically it's a dispute between two individuals that know each other, at least at acquaintance level. And the dispute can range over drugs, it can range over money owed for a variety of things. We've seen in the past over a beer and a hamburger, or it can over relationships. So more cases than not, people that have a relationship with each other, that have some dispute over something that was owed or some relationship.
How do you police against that if these are people that mostly know each other and are shooting each other because of something that happened between them?
One of the things that we talked about is guns and the availability of guns. And the availability of guns in people's hands that are emotional. And so we can talk about the reticence of guns being in people's hands. They go out and immediately act on that. Last night, just as an example, we had a homicide on the northern edge of downtown. If you saw the video from the car, multiple gunshots into that car. High-capacity magazine probably, assault rifle maybe. The availability of guns in the hands of criminals, their willingness to use them to solve these personal disputes. The 3 homicides that we've had so far, we are able to track back to a person's lifestyle, to the choices that they've made, or their criminal histories.
Bruce, I wanted to follow up on something that you had said about bringing the people together to the table. We've heard about a lot of the programs before, and these names aren't unfamiliar to people who kind of follow crime in the city. What does bringing them all together do, as opposed to just, the programs that they already have in place? What are the new ideas?
So what happens is when you bring them all together, you get to see what didn't work for each particular program. And then you're able to combine those thoughts, those measures, those whatever steps you're taking to build something. Like they said, by bringing it together, it's kind of like Transformer, right? Voltron. Everything comes together to create one big machine that's going to help fight this. And a lot of the programs, some of the programs have been around, but some of these programs haven't been around that long, like the Prison of Prosperity program, like Civil Liberties program, that are already showing numbers, that are already showing exactly what they can do, especially with more funding and more support.
For Bruce, how do you change someone's mindset from thinking that it's okay for them to kill somebody, that it's okay for them to steal someone else's property? How do you do that? How can this commission help change that?
The commission can help because we have individuals that come from that same neighborhood, that come from that same background. When I go talk to a young man or a young woman that's on this road, they see me as familiar. They're not used to seeing familiar faces come down and show them what hope looks like, because so many in our community don't know what hope looks like. They don't know what opportunity looks like. So when we provide them with that opportunity, you'd be amazed at the quick response we get and the amount of time they're willing to change overnight. They always say that we can't fix things overnight, but you can, because if you meet somebody where they're at, and yesterday they were thinking about going robbing, going killing, going to do something, and you meet them with an opportunity, and the next day they start their new normal to opportunity, you just change them overnight.
And when you talk about that opportunity, I think that the mayor touched on it briefly. There were like 15 communities or something like that you said that there were going to be some different programs in or more resources. Could you identify those communities and
Yes.
talk a little bit more about those resources?
Yes, and I will say that in our peer plan, the law enforcement piece is the last resort. And we acknowledge that every single day. We know that the men and women of this police department, they're ready to go if a crime occurs. The rest of the peer plan pieces is to try to provide an environment and opportunities to reduce crime to individuals. And I do want to say that I spent an evening with Bruce in the medium security prison, and a number of young people they're young, mostly first offenders, or they're committing low-level crimes. They're in prison because they're awaiting trial. They haven't been convicted of the offense that they have been charged with, and probably can't afford a bond, but they're in jail. And we're giving them an opportunity, and I spoke to them individually there, to do something positive with their life. And one of the things I heard one of the young men say, and the rest of them all shook, nodded yes. And he said, we appreciate this program because he says, I feel like I can be myself here. Because when I get out of here and I go back in the neighborhood, then I got to be somebody else. So these are things, and Kevin, we spend a lot of time doing this stuff. You're going to see the stadium and you're going to see minimum wage because of the national and focus and a lot of other reasons, the controversy. But every day, I've got a great team of people in government and a lot of people outside of government. I spent this morning with a whole bunch of community leaders in my office talking about our choice neighborhood plan. We have a planning grant now, and we're vying for competitively a $30 million choice neighborhood grant from the federal government to help invest and infuse resources and opportunities in one of the most poverty-ridden and high crime neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis. That's what we're doing. I spent a good part of the morning with a lot of people. I've got a number of other meetings this week to talk about that. You're not going to see that on television, and that's fine. But the point is that to say that this is window dressing or that we're trying to do something else. Our motives are, we want, as a mayor, I've been doing this job for quite some time. My number one responsibility is make sure every person has an opportunity to succeed, that every person can go home every night feeling safe. The people that work in our community can feel comfortable, they can feel like they can make some money, and people that want to visit our city can enjoy themselves without fear. So we spend a lot of time on it, but law enforcement, and that's what we're here at the police department, we're talking a lot about that. It's the absolute last resort. The big heart and the hardest work, well, it's hard work. These guys do hard work. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't want their job, but a big part of the work needs to be done on the front end, and we spend a lot of time with that. To answer the question, the neighborhoods include Dutchtown, Wells Goodfellow, Gravois Park, Baden, Bevo Mill, Jefferson Vanderloo, West End, Penrose, the Greaterville, O'Fallon, Hyde Park, Kingsway West, Walnut Park West, Mark Twain. I didn't count them, but That's 14. And there's one on the back page. Mark Twain, I-70. Those are the neighborhoods.
I have a quick question for the chief. You probably answered this, and I may have missed it fiddling around with all this stuff. But what accounts for the flip-flop from July to the end of the year in the crime stats?
Yeah, as the mayor talked, there is no magic wand. And so what I do know is that we've put additional officers through overtime out into the neighborhoods, that we've reorganized inside the police department, and that's something that we did at the end of summer to really put all of the enforcement pieces into one silo. I think that had a significant impact on it. What I also realize is that officers are just now catching up from what I would call the Ferguson effect, that they are back in the neighborhoods doing the jobs that they do well, focused on the areas and the people that are responsible for the crimes. So when police officers, and we've seen this trend for the past 2 decades plus in the city, where in the neighborhoods, focused on the job that you and I asked them to do, we're able to see results. For a year and a half, we were tasked with other things. Officers were tired, they're re-energized, they're reinvigorated, and they're doing their jobs well. Coupled with the peer plan, coupled with what I think we're going to see from the Crime Commission. One thing to Rachel's question that I think fits into this, crime is a regional issue, and so we need to be talking about it as a region. The things that we're going to see from the Crime Commission will help focus what I would call as a shotgun approach. 28 to Life does a lot of good work, Better Family Life does a lot of good work, Joe Yancey does a lot of good work, but sometimes they work in isolation. Now there's a chance to take that synergy, and I'm hoping, I'm encouraged by what County Executive Stanger has done with the standards bill for law enforcement. I think we can go further, and I think there are more opportunities for regionalism and cooperation to address our region's crime problem. Because as the mayor alluded, this didn't happen in the city alone. It happened in St. Louis County, it happened in other communities in the state, it happened in Kansas City and around the country.
Chief, you said 1,500 guns were seized last year.
Over 1,500, yes.
And so how many of those, Chief, were stolen?
So we'll have a complete summary of all of that. But those guns that we seized, quite a few were stolen. But what's unique is Missouri does not have a law that requires you to report your gun stolen. So you can have a gun stolen, and there's no requirement for you to notify law enforcement that gun. So a lot of guns that we seize, we trace back to the original owner, and they say, well, I sold it, I gave it to somebody, and very quickly that trail runs cold. So until we have a law that requires individuals to report their gun has been stolen, that number is really kind of meaningless.
Can the Crime Commission be an advocate for some of those things that you were talking about, the gun docket and the changes in these laws? Is that part of their function, do you think, Chief?
I think they can certainly have a voice in it, but I think the biggest voice has to be in Jefferson City, where legislators from Cape Girardeau, from Springfield, from Mexico, Missouri, make decisions that impact the city of St. Louis and Kansas City, the two urban cores, the economic engines that really don't make sense for our communities. We saw that with Amendment 5. It was overwhelmingly passed in the state, but it failed by 2/3 in the city of St. Louis. People in the city of St. Louis need to make decisions that keep them safe. Jefferson City needs to realize that.
2 last quick questions. Since Ferguson, have you seen the relationship at all between officers and people in the community improve? Do you think that things have died down? And then also, if we're here next year and the number of homicides is close to 200 again, can you call this commission a success? Is there any way to do that?
Well, I'll answer your second question first. I don't think that, as the mayor said, there is any one magic wand. The editorial board at the Post-Dispatch earlier this year touted the No Violence Initiative in Kansas City. Kansas City ended the year in a similar position as St. Louis. So there are so many factors that go into that. You heard the president, after 8 years, finally enacting an executive order to address gun violence after Sandy Hook, after San Bernardino, after so many things. So there's so many factors that go into it. But as the mayor said, we cannot leave any stone unturned. There are going to be some great ideas that come from this commission. Will anyone turn the needle? I don't know. But I think our community will be better because of the Crime Commission in a year. The question is, how do you measure it? Maybe crime, maybe not. And to your second point about community relations are so important that when we reorganized, I put a deputy chief in charge of a group that we call Community Outreach and Organizational Development. Every day, he and his officers, it's their responsibility to work on improving the relationship. I went to a prisoner and prosperity program with Bruce Franks to talk to people that were inside the medium security institution. How can we do our job better? Let me get some feedback from you. Colonel Robinson is out every day, whether it's coffee with a cop, a program we're doing with the Attorney General at high schools to try and direct people towards a career in law enforcement. Every day we're working on it. A lot of work to do still, but it's a priority and it's a focus.
Chief,
Mayor Slay, if I could get you for a moment on the stadium. NFL owners meeting this week. Are you nervous? What's your gut telling you is going to happen?
We've talked a lot about that in the past. There's nothing new to report, and right now it's in the hands of the NFL owners. That's as much I got to say about it right now.
Chief, real quick on arson numbers. I noticed that was one area you didn't really touch. It was also one that went up. Do you have any sense of what is going on there?
So I think the increase was small. It was about 16 crimes or so.
Yeah,
It was a
overall total,
relatively smart. Certainly we know we had the church arsonist this year, which we were able, through collaborative investigation with St. Louis County, make an arrest on. So again, I caution on categories like that have small percentage increases. That's why I highlighted the true numbers. 16 crimes, again, our church arson was a significant portion of it.
Chief, well, two things. Mayor, will this commission have meetings open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, and who is the chair of it?
They're going to have to pick one.
Okay, they have to pick one. Okay, the other thing, Chief, you were saying that in the 5-year averages, I'm going to have to wing it here, but the assaults and robberies, I believe, were lower than the 5-year average, yet they're both up 5% this year. How does that happen, and did we have a terrible year 3 years ago?
So what it goes to is the testament that crime has been declining over the long term and the short term. I think at the end of your release, it talks about crime in 10 years is down 47%, crime in 5 years is down 23%, and crime in 3 years is down 6.5%. So the continual trend has been in a downward pattern.
Okay, but
so
this period, the assaults, murders, etc., were up a bunch last year. How does that happen?
So again, with the availability of guns, and the city is significantly safer today than it was 5 years ago. The caveat, the category that we're most challenged is the one that Kansas City is challenged by, Baltimore is challenged by, Chicago is challenged by, is homicides. That's a category that the mayor and I went and met with the Attorney General. We met with the director of the FBI and about 24 mayors and police chiefs and prosecutors, because communities all over our country are experiencing that same phenomenon. Again, if there was a magic wand, trust me, I'd say let's go buy one, but there isn't one yet. And so the violence around homicides and aggravated assaults is where a significant amount of our focus will be in 2016.
But on the 5-year average, robberies and aggravated assaults below 5-year average, burglary below 5-year average. That's what you said.
That's the story. That's the story.
Because I know that, but the numbers for 2015 in both categories were up.
Right.
So was there a
I'll sit down and
terrible
I'll give you the historical perspective. I'll give you the historical perspective, so you can see each year how it stair steps down. And again, crime doesn't always go down in a straight line; it doesn't go up. So I always like the context. We can do better than we did last year, but crime overall in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years, in the last 30 years is moving down in the city.
And I'll tell you, cities across America have experienced the same thing. Chief and I have been to we've been at a number of national meetings now. 2 in particular that involved a lot of big city mayors, police chiefs, as well as prosecutors. And the issue came up in a number of discussions on, what is causing this uptake, particularly in violent crime. And there were a number of things that were brought up as a possibility, but nobody could pinpoint what exactly it was that was causing these increases in crime, and in violent crime in particular. They talked about the easy availability of guns, the lack of appropriate outcomes in the courts, the amount of drugs, particularly heroin and some other synthetic drugs that are out there on the street, the easy accessibility, the cheapness of it, the purity, all these things that they're talking about, but nobody could say for sure what it was that was causing this increase in cities all across America. For sure, and nobody had a magic wand idea on what we need to be doing to reduce crime. So we're trying, we're trying to do all we can. I mean, that's the PEER plan. And again, law enforcement is the last but extremely important component.
Thank you very much.